This is the
BrighterSpectrum podcast.
where we illuminate the world of parenting children with autism. I'm CJ, a proud dad to a wonderful 6-year-old with autism. Through my journey, I've discovered the challenges, triumphs, and unique experiences that come with raising a child on the spectrum. Inspired by those experiences, I created this space where parents like you can find understanding, share stories, and learn from each other. Join me as we explore insights, strategies, and support, all while celebrating the brighter spectrum of our children's lives. Now, let's dive in and cast light on this path together. Welcome back, and thanks for hanging out with me. Sitting down today is trauma surgeon, Dr. Kendra Davis, DO. We're going to discuss parenting kids on the autism spectrum and balancing careers and all kinds of fun stuff today. Dr. Kendra, thank you so much for hanging out.
Oh, no problem. It's my pleasure.
And we're starting off strong here today. It definitely sounds like you have your hands full over there. Can we get a little introduction to the little ones you have running around?
Come here, Jaxie. Hey, come here. You want to say hi?
No.
He's a little bit upset right now because he can't find his favorite markers.
Oh,
We'll,
no.
we'll get them, okay? I know that they're in the craft closet, okay? Can you?
That is a tragedy for sure.
Yes.
So what are their names, and when did you find out they were on the spectrum?
I'm sorry. 1 second, or else he's just gonna continue hollering.
Yep. Yeah, we know how it is.
Sorry.
No need to apologize. Actually, it's really cool when we're able to get that kind of thing onto the show, because it's one of the reasons I don't ever edit out my son. I might actually shorten that a little bit, but I never really edit out when my son is doing something like that, because a big part of this show is connecting with other parents and kind of setting up this sort of environment where they can empathize and realize that there are a lot of us out there that are going through the same stuff they are. So it's cool when they're able to be like, oh, okay, well, I'm not the only one who can't have a conversation for more than 30 seconds. And it's just very real, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's his name?
So his name is Jackson. And Jackson was diagnosed when we were living down in Florida. He had just turned 3. We had been on the wait list for an eval, oh gosh, for almost a year at that
Mm-hmm.
point. And we had been on the wait list for developmental peds for over a year at that point. And
Yep.
they had just I had called for an update and they told me that it was going to be closer to 2 years. And
Sounds about right.
yep. And where we were, there was not enough childcare. And so we had been on a wait list for 3 years for childcare, for a daycare. We basically would get in, and then within a couple of days, they'd be like, he's too much work. And we would be right back out. And that happened twice. So we had a nanny at the time, and so it was high cost for childcare because my hours were very long. I was working 100 hours a week, and my husband was also working at the time. And so we kind of got to the point where when he was diagnosed, we're like, what are we doing? We're burning the candle at both ends. We weren't sleeping. I went through 3 different pediatrician office looking for help about what to do, what was the best things to do, where to go. The places that they referred me to were either they weren't seeing any patients or they had shut down. We finally got into a place that did not take insurance and it was 100% cash pay. They tested him, and she said, that he was autistic. And the first thing for me is I was like, are you sure? Because he had a lot of atypical features.
Mm-hmm.
He is very social and he made eye contact, but he's very much autistic. And just in the beginning as a parent, you're so overwhelmed. You're so overwhelmed, and you're hitting closed door after closed door after closed door. You don't know where to go. No one is helping you. And I was in the medical. the medical field. And I was like, how is this even possible that I can't get any answers? And these are my colleagues. How do people who are not in medicine even do this? What about single parents? Like, how did they navigate this? It was very eye-opening to me about how the cards were stacked against you from the get-go.
I'll tell you what, as a single parent, we row and bail and row and bail and row and bail, and the boat just keeps taking on water, and we just don't stop.
Don't stop bailing. I
Yeah.
mean, it's tough. It's so tough. Um, so at that point, I was just like, I'm going to talk to everybody about this because, I had a friend who their child is autistic and they have told no one except like close family friends and family. And I'm just like, I'll tell anybody who listens. I mean, like people should know, like, how difficult it is to have a child with any differences and the road that you have to travel and like what it's like to destigmatize it as well as you can't fix a problem until you shine a light on it.
I was just about to say that's that shame stigma right there. They probably were raised in a household where people who were different like that were like ostracized almost. Like it was almost like a dishonorable thing to have them around.
Yes. Yes. And, you know, I will say that, I tell everyone that Jackson's autism diagnosis didn't change Jackson, but it did change me a lot. Um, it's kind of funny. My mom was even telling me like a few months ago, she was like, I feel like being an autism mom has made you way more patient. She was like, in a way, it's made you more kind.
hmm
And it's made you more, just tolerant of anything and everything. And I was just like, yeah, because it's taught me a lot about like what's important in life and the things that, in finding happiness in ways that I never thought I would. Um, yeah.
And it's true that it really does change you, and to an aspect, while it makes plenty of things way more difficult for us. There are aspects of parenting that become easier in the aspect that like a lot of stuff that you would discipline or maybe scold a neurotypical child for, there's just no point in doing it with a kid on the spectrum. And like right now, like he's like talking to you trying to get your attention. Our parents would have been like, what are you doing? The adults are talking. Absolutely zero point in doing that with them, so there's no point in getting worked up about it.
Yeah.
So you kind of like get that sort of like it's almost like get a little bit of a break in some ways when it comes to your expectations of their behavior.
Yeah. And, I feel like it's also in the beginning, I was always so worried about what people were going to say at the park and if they were going to say something rude or if they were going to give him a dirty look because Jackson and his twin sister Olivia, they're both very tall. Like both of them do not look like kindergartners. They both look like they
Right.
should be in first or maybe even second grade. And you know, I'm just honest with people. I'm like, Jackson has autism. We're working on personal space. Because sometimes he runs right up the children. Um, and I'm right there to help like correct, but also I let him like play as well. But I don't let that stop me from taking him to enjoy experiences. In the very beginning, I remember being so anxious about it. And thankfully I have worked and moved past that. Um, because this he has every right to enjoy the park or go to an amusement park or in Target or Costco, wherever, as everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like, and maybe you can relate to this, like at first, like you see everybody that stares at them and you
Yeah.
hear every comment that gets made. And then after a couple of years, like it's almost like those people are part of the background. It's almost like they don't exist and you don't even see them staring anymore. You don't hear the nasty stuff that they say. Like a lot of people, because I actually feel very strongly about it. I've had words with people at the grocery store even, And
Mhm.
like when it comes to the playground, I would take my son there and he would start stimming or something, and parents would come grab their kids and leave. It's like your kids can play with them. They're like, man, they just leave. And you're like, all right, well, rude, first of all. But
Yeah.
that's fine. And you stop eventually it becomes part of the reality of dealing with it. And I feel like as terrible as that is, and as much as we should be working on awareness, it's like almost good for our kids to see the way we react to it, because they're looking to us and they're going to kind of mimic that. And if we act like, to heck with those people, they're going to maybe have that same sort of attitude. And of all the things that get their emotions all overwhelmed, maybe that's one less thing they have to deal with.
Yes, I agree with that. And honestly, as far as acceptance, I'm past, or awareness, I mean, I'm past awareness. For me, it's acceptance. And if you don't accept my children, then we don't have a place for you when, like, in our life. Like, so we're just gonna keep on keeping on, and we're gonna keep on living, and we're gonna keep on having a good time and enjoying ourselves. And because everybody's aware that autism is a thing, and it's whether or not
Hmm.
they accept it or not. And so thankfully, in our family is very accepting and has been very, like, open and very warm, and is a very our extended families, between New York and South Carolina, have been a soft place to land, I should say.
Mm.
Um, and it's not always like that for people. And I have a friend who has a son on the spectrum, and just the comments she has to deal with from grandparents, like, or the links that they send her for cures and, like, vitamins or what have you. Like, it's just like kind of like that knee jerk reflex to find something to fix him. You know what I mean? Where instead of just accepting him where he is, I'm just happy that we don't have that, but it makes me, feel really bad for parents and kiddos that do have that in their family, because your family should be the one safe place for you.
Yeah, I do see a lot of that. A lot of people pushing like stem cell treatments and stuff as sort of like a cure. And
Mhm.
I've seen I do a lot of lurking in various autism support groups. I post here and there once in a while, make a comment, but for the most part, I just kind of like read um and see where people are at. And I do see like the large controversy between the whole idea of like stem cell treatment, from what I understand, and I haven't done a whole lot of research on it, but apparently it's very painful for the child and doesn't really have like a high success rating. But there is this like faction of parents who are all about it because they'll do anything to quote unquote fix their kid. And
Mhm.
I had a previous guest come on, Mary Berridge. She was an author and photographer that came onto the show, and her child was quoted as basically saying like he wouldn't want to be fixed, because it would take away a part of him that helps make him him.
Mhm.
And I can really like kind of relate to that, because even with like my son and the trials and tribulations I go through and the challenges and whatnot, I don't think at this point I would want to fit, even if it was 100% surefire this will cure the autism. I don't think I would actually do it. And I don't know how you sort of feel about that sort of idea.
You know, I love who Jackson is. I think he is a great kid. He is so funny, and he is a loving child. Yes, does he get fixated on not having his Crayola markers? Yes. But that's, also 5-year-olds do that kind of stuff, you
Hmm.
know. And so, I feel like he has so much value to what he can offer and what he could do, and so much potential growing up, that I don't think I would be afraid of what I was doing to him potentially. Like,
Yeah.
I don't look at, like, he needs to be fixed. Whenever I first told my mom, actually, that they told me he was, his eval said that he was screened positive for autism and being on the spectrum. Um, I don't remember, I can't remember exactly what she said to me, but I looked at her and I was like, he is not broken. Like,
Right.
this is just a part of our life, and he's, going to have some things that we have to work through, but a lot of children have that. And he's not broken. He's not, um, there's nothing to fix. This is just who he is, and it doesn't change who he is to me. And she was like, "You're right. That's 100% right." Yeah.
And it really is. And there's a lot to enjoy with these kids when it comes to that sort of thing. Like, my favorite part of having a kid on the spectrum is his absolute reckless behavior. Like, he's just, he has no sense of this could possibly be dangerous and maybe I should be scared. None of it. It's like we go like, dude, you want to go in the haunted house? Boom, he's the first one in. He's ready. I'm like, let's go, and and sometimes he really gets my adrenaline going, like when he tries to, jump off a wall into a ravine when he can't swim,
Oh
you
gosh.
know, and that gets your blood flowing a little bit. But it really is that's my all-time just favorite aspect of having a kid on the spectrum. It's just that reckless, you have no idea what's about to happen, and they're ready for anything you want to do. You want to go on an adventure? Backpack is on, shoe is on, they're out the front door. They want to do it.
Yeah. It's so funny because Jackson is like that. And then sometimes he's like, boom, I'm afraid of heights today. And you're like, what? Like, and then it's just like, he's not gonna yeah, he just yelled cannonball and jumped off the couch. But like but like sometimes, oh my gosh. So we have been doing swim lessons for over a year, and he has made great progress. And we are with a swim educator who has a lot of credentials in the special needs community, and she's done this for like 31 years. Um, and she's very patient. And so it's kind of like a water therapy, like a OT and a PT and swim lessons all in one. And so it's been very good for him. But when we were on vacation this summer in South Carolina, I saw him going towards the deep end, and I literally was 2 steps behind him. And I remember he just looked at me, he smiled, and then he just stepped off right into the deep end.
Yep.
And then and I was like, "Oh my gosh." And then he did all the safety stuff that he had learned, but still, like, I, like, jumped in, all this stuff, like, freaked out, and he came up, he didn't take on any water or anything, and he just smiled. Like, but then sometimes he's like, "Oh, no, it's deep down there, I'm afraid." So you never know. You
Right.
never know if you're gonna get caution or complete abandonment to the wind with this one.
And I've really gotta look into it too because kids on the spectrum, with autism and stuff, like, they love water.
They
Everything
love
is
water.
water, and I had that same situation with my son, and I was telling him, like, "Hey, play over here where you can stand. Don't go there because you can't stand, you can't swim." And he kept wanting to jump in, he kept wanting to jump in, and I was standing right there, and I was like, "You know what? You don't wanna listen to me? Find out." And he jumped in and down he went, and I jumped in and got him. He was in there for maybe 3 seconds, bring him
Mhm.
up, he's coughing and sputtering. I'm like, "See, this is why daddy said don't do that." And, he's up there and he's sitting there and he gets up and he just jumps back in. I'm like, "Oh god." I was like, "Okay, we're not gonna learn that way, I guess." And, so I went and got him a life vest because I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah, I mean, you know, from a trauma perspective, drowning is like the number one like cause of death in autistic children under the age of 10. And
Mhm.
so it's, it's a real risk, and it's good that you've got them that life vest. I mean, I make them wear life vests, and I want to kayak so bad with them next summer. This summer we've kind of passed the season, I think, since it's already September.
Yeah,
Hopefully next year they'll be strong enough, but I'm still going to make them wear a life vest because we'll be in the river.
right.
Um, it's, that's one of those things you can't take away from yourself after you see, like, you know one bad incidence. He's sneaking
Yeah,
into the pantry right now and eating chips. He thinks I
go
don't see
for it.
him.
Get it, kid.
Yeah, he thinks
They're
I don't see him.
they're so funny. They're such bad liars, and they're so bad at sneaking stuff. You're like, "Are you eating chips?" They're like, "No." Mouthful of chips, bag behind their back. You're like, "All right." Uh, but you know what? This year I started taking my son paddleboarding.
Ooh,
Um,
yeah.
And I'll tell you what, he's like a wild child and always wanting to jump in water. When he's actually on the paddleboard and out in the middle of the lake, we go to like Nockamixon and Leeser and stuff. Um, which you're in the valley, like you understand where
Yeah.
those places are, and he's actually really really good. Like he likes to lay across and like stick his legs in one side and play with the water on the other side, and it makes paddling very hard. But I'm a little overweight, so I need the exercise. And but like he's really really good about it, and I've fallen in, he hasn't fallen in yet.
Oh,
Um, Yeah, yeah, he always wants to take the paddles away from me because he wants to do the paddling, and then we end up in circles, and it's a lot of fun. But yeah, if you want to take them kayaking and stuff, oh my god, do it because they're
yeah.
different kids. Once you get them out into the lake or whatever, they're different kids. And you're like, where is this kid
Yeah.
at home in
Drink
the
your
living
water.
room when you're driving me insane?
Yeah, the thing is like, and I think OT calls it heavy work. That like I have Jackson carry groceries for me, and the kids help me like load the dish or load the washing machine and put the wash in the dryer and stuff. Anything that like that get his muscles firing and help him burn some energy. So
Hmm.
we have scooters, we have bikes, and I, really am hoping to start doing some water stuff because even if he just paddles in a circle, just pulling that paddle through the water gives so much feedback. It helps calm his body. So I
Yep.
think that he'll really enjoy it. And both of my kids love the water. They're little water babies.
Hmm. Yeah, they really are. They're different kids. You like brought up just now, like loading the dishwasher and stuff. That's my
Hmm.
second favorite thing about having a kid on the spectrum. I've made sweeping the floor and mopping the floor and stuff like that into a game. Oh, he loves it. It's a great time. We love mowing the lawn. I'm like, hey man, yeah, you have fun with that. You're scoring all the points, brother. Dad's
Yeah.
gonna have a Pepsi over here. I'm gonna
Does the
keep. I'm gonna keep
noise,
watch.
is he bothered by the noise at all of the mower?
No, no.
Okay.
I'm actually very, very fortunate. I don't have a lot of the auditory sensitivities with my son that a lot of people have to deal with. Like,
Mhm.
we go to concerts, we go to festivals. There's a walk for autism actually this weekend coming up. I'll tell you about that after the show.
Oh, cool.
Um, and it's actually like a field day for autism, like all the sensory stuff, and then they're doing a charity walk. It's going to be neat. Um, and like all these like heavily crowded things, I take him to concerts and he loves it. He eats it up.
Oh, that's
As long as I'm
amazing.
there. If I try to walk away from him, meltdown. We found that out. We
Yeah.
went to the plant festival that was last weekend. I left him with his grandmother, and I went to go walk around with his stepmom for a little bit. And within 5 minutes, he was in a full blown meltdown. I had to go back and get him. And then we petted baby goats, and that recentered us, and we were fine the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, but like it's so much fun when you can kind of do that stuff with them, and I got very fortunate in that aspect.
Yeah, he used to be very, very sensitive to our vacuum cleaner, but now he uses the vacuum cleaner. I think it's just sometimes time and allowing him to explore that in a way that makes sense to him and that isn't like a frightening thing for him has helped us
Hmm.
a lot with that kind of stuff. And it's helped quite a bit. And I'll be honest with you, Jackson has changed so much in the last 2 years, but kids develop a lot between like 3.5 to like, almost 6. That's a big change for most children. So some of it, I think, is just like normal developmental things. And some of it, I think, is just being in a place where he can have supports. Um, I kind of alluded to this earlier, but when he got diagnosed, um, the person who diagnosed him told me that the best thing I could do was to leave Florida, like just because the amount of services there and the waits were higher than most places. And so I had worked in the Lehigh Valley previously. So I managed to come back to one of our hospitals here and actually part time. So I work usually on average about 40 hours a week, which I know is kind of crazy to hear part time with that. But for surgeons, that does count as part time.
I was just about
And
to say.
yeah, yeah. And so I work mostly nights and weekends. So it allowed me, if there was a therapy that worked for us and that we wanted to try and do, I could do it during the week. And, or if there was somewhere I needed to drive him, like, boom, we could do it, like, in the Lehigh Valley. Um, we've had really great experiences here, and the people that we've met that have helped our family and Jackson in particular, and the preschool that he was in, and now he's in kindergarten, and it's made a huge difference to our lives as parents, our relationship with each other, and just, and I think our daughter as well, because our home is much more stable. We don't have those episodes where it's like very volatile. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah, yeah, when you have that nice balance going on, it seems to really help keep them leveled out.
yeah, yeah. And there's so many things to do here where, like, taking them to, a pumpkin patch, taking them to pick vegetables. We've got a farm near us where you can pick your own potato. They kind of disc up the soil so they're sitting right there on top. It's not like you're having to dig them up or anything. And you just pick them up, and then you take them, they clean them, and then make French fries out of them right there.
Oh, man, that's
He
cool.
loves it. Both of the kids, they just love it.
That's awesome. I gotta fi
Yeah.
after the show, I'll have to ask you where that's at. My kid would love that.
Yeah, sure.
Well, he's, like you said, your son earlier is, fixated with, Crayola. Mine is, construction vehicles and farm vehicles. That's his thing, and anything to do with farming. He loves it. So, he would love to go pick his own potatoes. Maybe he'd actually eat them too if he got to pick them.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I tried that with, like, other vegetables, green ones, it did not work. But the french fries were on. He was fine with that.
Isn't it funny? And tell me if this is like sort of like what you went through, but like originally my son would eat anything except for peas. Hated peas, but he would eat anything. And then one day I was just worn out. I was running real hard. I didn't feel like cooking. I ordered pizza. Well, that was it. Suddenly we won't eat nothing but pizza, chicken nuggets, french fries, and pizza rolls. And like that was it for like a couple years. And then recently I've gotten him onto some more stuff. I have an episode actually I did with the author of the book that I used to start getting him eating new things, and um, but it was like crazy. Like, did you have a similar experience with Jackson where like he would just eat everything, and then one day it was just like, nope, not doing that anymore?
Well, kind of, whenever he was little, we've always kinda had some kind of food issue. Like, when he first started solids, he was always the hard one to feed. Nobody wanted to feed him, of course. They only wanted to feed his sister, who ate beautifully. And he was did a lot of sputtering and things like that, as at, like, as soon as he started baby food. Um,
Mhm.
he ate a lot better as, like, a toddler. Like, I'd say, like, 1 to 2, 2.5. He would eat, like, meat for me, like, if I cut up a meatball, grilled chicken, whatever, pizza, whatever I put, like, down on his little tray, he would always, like, eat. Then I'd say around 3, he started getting more picky, and now we have trouble with most meats. We are working on it. He does not wanna eat any green vegetables. He's still talking about his marker box. He basically, if it is a carbohydrate, and if it is a carbohydrate with cheese, then he is down. If it is it used to be a butter noodle, he would eat that as well too. But now his like favorite things are cheese and bread and French fries, and he would like to eat some variation of that every single day. So we try to present him with different foods. I try to do the whole thing about, how about you just give this a try? And a couple of times he has liked what I have tried him with, but I will say most of the time he doesn't. So, we just keep on trying it. I did get him to eat baby carrots.
Mm,
I consider that a great success. And
that's a huge win.
they have to be raw, but hey, whatever. So,
Whatever makes you happy. Yeah, eat
yeah,
all the raw vegetables you want. I don't care. First of all,
yeah,
that's easier for me. I'll just slap them on a plate. Here you are.
yeah.
Oh man, maybe that's why he thinks you're a chef. He wants to eat them raw, and you don't have to do anything.
Maybe. It's it's so funny. He recently has been saying that, "You're a chef." And I'm just like, "Yeah, I think you just picked that job out of the hat because no, I wish.
I wish my kid felt that. See, I actually was a chef for a long time, and mine is just like, "I'm not eating nothing you make, old man." I'm like, "This is delicious." He's like, "Man, I don't care." You know? Oh my god, these kids. Uh, you know,
They will
so
humble you.
I'm sorry?
They will humble you.
Oh my god. Oh my god, will they? Because they don't know how to lie. Like, they try to lie once in a while, really bad at it, and then they kinda stop, and then they're just like, "I'm just gonna give it to you blunt. This is what it is," and you're just like, "Oh, man.
Oh yeah.
Like, you couldn't lie to me just a little bit?" Like
Yeah. I made the mistake of asking him one time if he like I was like, "Do you like this lipstick?" And he was like, "No, no, I don't." No. This does not look good. That's what he said.
Mine, mine likes to comment on my weight. That's his thing.
Yeah,
If I
sometimes he does that too.
you look at him like, "You little monster," like, "You're not wrong, but you little monster." And, mine, his thing is if I'm not wearing a shirt, he'll run up and he'll try to truffle shuffle my belly, and, he will tell people I'm pudgy, like, right in front of me.
Yeah.
He'll just tell them, "Daddy's pudgy," and I'm like, "Dude, they can see
Yeah.
that."
I've
Like,
I've got some pounds to lose too. And one time he was like, "You have a baby in your belly?" And I was
"Oh,
like, "No." He said,
no.
"Are you sure?"
Oh, no."
Yeah. I was like, "We don't comment on people's bodies." That whole thing.
And then they look at you like, "Maybe you don't comment, but I do. I have
Yeah.
questions." Like
Yeah, exactly. I have questions and they need answers. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man. So how do you, like, you're a trauma surgeon, which is, like, the most hectic surgeon on the planet. How do you balance that sort of work life? I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'd really like you to go in depth with having a career like that, because so many of us end up losing our jobs and having to stay home. What is your secret here? How are you balancing that?
It was really hard. I loved my job in Florida. I loved it. The cases were hard. They were they were always on the higher end of difficulty, and the challenge was always kind of there. And it was like what you trained to do. All the fastballs. And um but with that comes, most of the time comes some long hours. People are sick. You can't leave their bedside. Cases have to go to the OR. You can't just be like, well, sorry guys, my kid's having a hard day. And so it put a lot of strain on my marriage, and it was expensive because we were burning through nannies, because, a lot of people like just were not equipped to deal with a special needs child, and got frustrated easily and things like that. And, at times I would work 100 hours a week. So just felt like I was burning the candle at both ends. I consider myself very lucky, extremely lucky. And I'm in a networking group for physicians who are special needs moms in particular. And a lot of them are stay at home moms now because they could not find, even in medicine, a safe haven where they could find a place to work that was also understanding of the needs of their family. I've been very lucky that the group that I'm with and the hospital that I'm with, I trained there as a fellow, and I always heard them say family first. In the back of your head, you're like, okay, yeah, everybody says that, but somebody's got to work. But they truly, my department truly embodies that. And I'm part-time. I work nights and weekends. When I'm not here, my husband is on. We have a sitter that actually is going to school for neuropsychology. And so she's very patient, and she, we whenever we need her, she comes by for a date night so we can take a break, or if our schedules overlap and we need somebody kind of here for a couple hours while I'm going to work and he's finishing work. That happens occasionally. Um, I will honestly say that emotionally, kind of working through that as well as like with my job as well, I, started going to therapy to kind of reconcile a lot of that stuff, a lot of the mom guilt, a lot of the social anxieties that I was having, like, with, doing things in public or and having a child that didn't behave like the way that people said he should. Um, and that helped me a lot because it gave me someone to like listen that, you know, knew, like, that understood, um, where I was coming from a little bit. As someone that I worked with had a special needs child, and also befriending other special needs parents. And sometimes when you have somebody who's walked the walk that you have, it kind of get they can give you a lot of perspective and they can also give you a lot of advice. You just have to be willing to listen. But the biggest change for us was moving and going down to working less, um, for me. And I just kind of trudged through the weeks whenever, it was being like a full-time stay-at-home parent and then full-time trauma surgeon on the weekends. it's kind of it's kind of wild, but I don't know. It's so much easier than whenever I was working more.
Hmm. That's a really interesting take on it because I know a lot of us right now, like real big stay at home work, um, work from home jobs are like the grail of being an autism parent, right? Because you can just have them doing whatever it is they do in the background while you're still working and getting money. And a lot of us are get put into this position where we're not able to perform our jobs and we end up losing our jobs,
Mhm.
and we struggle at that point to try to make things work. So it's interesting to hear not just somebody who's made a working life actually work for them, but like the most intense job you could possibly have and making it work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
honestly, I call it, whenever I came back and I was talking to my now boss about it, I was like, I'm looking for a unicorn. And he was like, well, I was like, and it was like, this is what my husband had like said, I think this is like the best scenario. And I was like, what you're asking for doesn't exist. It's a unicorn. And he was like, oh, we have it. And I will honestly say that I'm very lucky in that my job was basically tailored for my family needs. And that 99.99% of the time does not happen. And I will say that, it's I just don't know how some people can, in some industries, because some industries are very not very family friendly whatsoever. Um, how they make it work without family support as well, because we both live away from our families, like, close by. Um, but without the understanding of my department and my boss in particular, whose close friend has an autistic child, and I think that, that really helps people put things in perspective and understand, experience, and knowing someone or having been through it themselves. And giving a lot of grace to parents and giving them some accommodations for their jobs to make things work.
Mhm.
Because you can't do, like, I can't think of a job in this country that you can just do with having a child with a special need, because your life is, because none of those jobs are cut to make that work. They have to be uniquely accommodated.
It really does, and it's amazing that you actually found an employer who treats you like a human being and not like a number, you know.
Yeah.
And most of us, we're just a number. We're replaceable. If we don't meet what they need, they'll just get rid of us. They'll forget who we were in 2 days, you know. So it's really nice that you were able to find someone who is like, hey, I'm dealing with human beings here who have very real needs, you know. Um, and that's phenomenal. So like having that job, and I'm sure finding that employer was like, you know, the an amazing comfort. But before that, especially like when you first found out, or maybe you started seeing the signs and you kind of knew something wasn't, um, I guess like the typical process of a child growing up, you know, can you kind of like take us through now and really kind of talk to us about, like how you felt, like take us through the trenches with you, and then maybe if you have some advice on, how you kind of came to terms with it, accepted it, maybe even like found happiness in having them around.
Yeah. So, with Jackson, he was a biter when he would get frustrated because he had a speech delay, and it was kind of his way of communicating. And so, um, we were dealing with that at home, and then he was so hyperactive. He was like a red bouncing ball, just bouncing from wall to wall, and he was not sleeping. He would sleep maybe 3 hours, and then he would be up, and then my husband and I would be trading off who would be up like with him, making sure he stayed safe, because when he was like, 2.5, he could climb on things, he could jump off things, and we had to keep him confined to like a room in our house that was kind of like toddler proofed, I like to call it. And he went through 5 different baby gates because he was big and strong. Yes. Yes. So so I was exhausted. I was so exhausted. And I remember rounding in the ICU. For trauma, we do surgical critical care as well as general surgery, emergency general surgery, and trauma surgery. We kind of encompass all those things. So I was rounding in the ICU, and I just remember the day that I got called from a daycare telling me to come pick him up, and it was 9:30, and we had dropped him off like just at 7:45. And I just remember looking at the nurse director for the ICU, and I just burst into tears. And because I was just like, I don't know what to do. No one had, we went to the pediatrician. Nobody's helping me. All these numbers I'm calling, like I can't get in to see anyone. Um, and she just said, mama, being a mama is hard. She was like, and you don't get to pick your hard, unfortunately. She was like, and I know that I don't understand what is going on, with Jackson, and that you're scared for him. She was like, but she was like, all you can do is love him. And he's not giving you a hard time. He's having a hard time. And so every single time I would meet something with frustration with what was going on, I was just like, okay, he's not, he's not giving me a hard time. He's having a hard time. And I'm just going to continue to love him through it. And doing the best that I could. Um, and then finally, when we got a diagnosis, even though I remember telling my partner, Coco did not die. She's just asleep. That's our dog. He just came up. Okay, it's okay. So, so, so I'm sorry. It was gross.
That's so funny.
So, so then after he got diagnosed, I remember telling my then partner, um, that, I'm expecting the results back any day and whatever. And I was in the ER seeing a consult, and they sent me the report before our appointment the next day. And I had to open it. So I opened the email, opened the file, and I saw the first thing was like autism level 1. And I had just kind of convinced myself that he had bad ADHD. And even though I said 1,000 times that he might be on the spectrum. But when I saw that in black and white, I was devastated. And I thought about it a lot afterwards about like why so. And I think because in that moment I was grieving, you know, grieving the future that I thought I had for him, that I had made up in my mind, grieving what I thought would be like a normal progression of life, or grieving like what I thought he would maybe have. And I couldn't get past that in the moment of thinking about the joy and the wonderful things he already had. Um, and my partner who was working with me that day, his daughter is on the spectrum. And I looked at him and I was like, I don't know why I'm crying. And he said, I do. He was like, because and then he told me, he was like, you're grieving, you know, he was like, and that's very, very common. He was like, but he's like, it doesn't, and this is where I got this. He's like, it doesn't change anything about Jackson. He is still your son. You know, and he actually said, this diagnosis is actually going to open a lot more doors than you realize, Because instead of being like, I have a child with behavioral problems, now when you call places, you're going to say, I have a child with autism and I need services. And he's going to qualify for some services, and it is going to help you get things done for him. And in a way, that is true. And in a way, it's not, because there's 50 other kids also with autism trying to get services. So it just kind of depends. But um, it took me a while to, I think, fully process everything. But once I kind of settled into, okay, now I have something to work towards, right? I need to give him the best opportunities possible and the happiest life possible. I would like for him to be as independent as he can from me and do whatever he can do and live a full life. And so once I switched into that mode, the kind of like, whole surgeon personality took over and it was on. I was just like, okay, if he needs occupational therapy, I'm gonna find an occupational therapist. He needs physical therapy, we're gonna do that. Speech, we're gonna do that. I didn't start behavioral therapy until we moved to the Lehigh Valley. And I will say we go to Zim Zum, and I was very hesitant to do ABA. I know it can be very controversial, and I was just a little bit nervous. Some of the things I had heard, I have friends who were very pro, friends who were very not. But they have been wonderful. It doesn't feel very clinical. Like, you go to their office, there are plants hanging, there's incense burning, and it's like, love yourself, like signs that say things like that. And I was like, okay, I can work with this, And we've had, they've helped us through some like tough times, like how to best like intervene for something. And we've had a really good working relationship with them with like preschool issues and things like that. They've really kind of helped set us up for success in kindergarten. Um, so I know it's not for everybody, but I've looked around at all the therapies, and it's one of those things where I just went into like the whole research mode, like, or productivity mode of how can I best like support him. I'm not trying to fix Jackson. I'm just trying to support him in the best way that I can so that he has the happiest life that he can have. That's all we want for any child. And I also I actually took a certification class for special needs education advocacy, um, because I've met some friends along the way with children with different needs, not just autism. And it's shocking at how much an educational advocate can cost. I didn't realize this, but they can be up to like $300 an hour. And the average
Ooh.
American family cannot afford that. And a lot of those people don't even have certifications, or even sometimes a lot of experience. So I thought, well, I have some time and I have the means to take this class. And then I just basically, if people have a question, I'm like, okay, well, based on this and this and this is what I would do. And you could try this and that. And, I don't like tout myself as a special needs or a special needs education advocate, but I try to be a resource for people. And because there's so much out there and it's so hard to understand and wrap your head around, that if I can like help the community in any way possible, that's what I want to do. Um, but it's because it's tough. It's tough. And even with me being a trauma surgeon, I had to like really study some of that stuff to even get it, like what it meant, what was he entitled to, things of that nature. So I can only imagine, um, you know, being so overwhelmed, having to being a single parent, having to do everything, right? Like you have to cook, you have to clean, you have to prepare for like everything, you have to keep all the doctor's appointments. You have to possibly deal with like, uh a former partner that makes things contentious. You have to do all the doctor's appointments and take care of everything. That is a lot of burden to hold.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's why if anybody asks me for help, I try to help them the best way that I can. And I think that the other thing that I spoke about earlier, sorry, I'm super long-winded,
You're
but thing I
fine.
spoke about earlier is like doing therapy. I think as parents we hold so much, and there's still like guilt, even though that we may not even recognize. Um, and frustration. And sometimes it's nice to have somebody that you can just look at and say, this sucks, or this is terrible for whatever reason, or, we're having a hard time, and just have somebody be like, yeah, your feelings are valid. That is hard, or that does suck. And because it is not easy, and it is not straightforward. And it is not like even what you did yesterday may not fix the problem that you have today. And they change so fast that you have to kind of figure it out on the fly. Um, so I feel like,
You really do need to be super creative with these kids.
yeah,
Uh,
and
with
having
a
a good
lot of
support
things.
system. I mean, like, oh my gosh, I have a friend in South Carolina that I call occasionally, and she we've talked about autism so much that actually her TikTok algorithm has, like, I guess, listened to us. And now she's like on autism TikTok, like, because her phones listen to our conversations, and, like, basically, like, has, like, started feeding her stuff on the algorithm,
You know,
which is
I
kind of
had
scary.
I have the same thing, and, yeah, I ended up on the same TikTok stuff. I actually found some real, golden resources on there, like, I think my favorite, creator on that platform right now, for autism TikTok is, Torn Wolf. Um,
Yes, I love his content.
yeah, I'm actually working up the nerve to try to email and see if I can get him and his mom to come on the show. I wanna get some more
Oh,
episodes out first, but
yeah, you should totally do it, because you know what? I sent him a message actually whenever I first found his content. And I was like, and I will say that in a weird way, seeing him ADHD, autism, and
RFID, yeah.
in RFID, which we kind of have, not kind of, we do. Um, Seeing him, and he's so funny, like, I love his sense of humor and everything, and the videos he was putting out, and I was like, "Thank you very much." My child at the time, Jackson was just turned 5, maybe was at the end of being in the 4s, and I was just like, my child is young, but seeing you gives me, like, in a way, like, not hope, but gives me, like, an idea of, like, that he is going to be a person with a great sense of humor. He's going to be creative. Like, he's got all these amazing qualities that are going to come up to, like, being like a really cool human being. And it's when you're in the trenches when they're young. And I think his mom actually talked about this on a recent video about how much harder it is when they're small.
Mhm.
Like, what he could be like, because I think he's an awesome person. And I was like, and I appreciate you putting your content out there. And he was just like, thanks. But still, like, I think it's wonderful, and it's good for people to see that, especially his mom's story.
Oh,
Um,
man. Whew. That woman,
yeah,
oh my god. No one should have to go through what she's been through.
yeah, she's been through so much. And still, like, whenever I don't know, whenever you see her talk about him, you know, you could tell that, I don't know, how much she really loves and cares for him. And,
Mhm.
you know, and it's kind of her stuff hasn't gotten too much in the way of what she's trying to do for him. And, even though I know it had to be so difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And at this point, I'd really like to hear, cuz we all have like a lot of stuff that really like we worry about and the stuff that we wish they could do. And I like to, when we get near the end of things, really talk about, a couple of like real wins. Like what has some sort of like developmental obstacle or something that Jackson's overcome that you're just really proud or really relieved that he was able to overcome that challenge.
Oh my gosh, he started reading. Um, he, we didn't know that I thought he was sight reading. I'll be honest. I thought he was starting to sight read. I even told my husband, I was like, oh, he's starting to pick up sight words. Great. We'll work on, stuff with him and things like that. And then his therapist sat down with him with a one of those news, like a little newsletter from like highlights, and it was about Clifford the big red dog. And he just started reading it. And she sent me a video of it. And when I picked him up, like, she had showed me, or I hadn't even opened it yet because I was driving. And so she showed it to me. And I was so proud of him. And because he had just turned 5. And I don't know, it was just something about him reading just made me so proud. It's like hearing him read because he didn't talk for quite a while. And then, knowing that, okay, he is going to have a way to make his voice heard and communicate and things like that. Um, you know, it just, that was a big moment for me.
Mhm.
And,
That's
and small things too, like him sitting in his seat. This teacher told me he sat in his seat when he was supposed to in kindergarten the first day. That also made me happy. Like, like that has been a big deal for us, you know,
it
little
really
wins, big wins.
it's awesome. I mean, literacy is a huge win. Um, I always love hearing about, like, the real positive aspects and the things that, like, makes you so proud you get tears in your eyes,
Mhm.
Um, and it's always like a really nice way to kind of close a conversation. Um, because a lot of people do have a lot of, like, negative sort of emotions when it comes to dealing with a lot of this, so being able to look at the positive is super important.
Yeah.
um which is This is why I called the show Brighter Spectrum. I'm really hoping to, like, help people feel better about having a kid on the spectrum, and being their parent, and letting them know they're not alone, and that there are people out here who get it, and, like, maybe we'll have, like, our own little community at some point.
Yeah. I mean,
um
I found that sometimes, like, changing my expectation for things is the most important. Like, we went to Disney World, uh, like in January. And my parents were with us, and my mom was like, okay, well, what's on the itinerary? I was like, we're just going to do whatever we can do. And that's going to be enough.
right, right, we're gonna pick
And
a direction.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And when he's done, there are enough adults here that we can continue on and someone can go take a break with him. And, I call it sometimes paying the autism tax. Sometimes you have to pay for parking. Sometimes you have
Mhm.
to pay for a hotel. Sometimes, you can't fly, or if you do, you have to pay extra to make sure you're sitting beside each other, which all families have to do that. And then, it's just, or you have to get there earlier so you can make sure you go through the special line. I don't know if you've heard about TSA Cares. Um,
Yes.
we use TSA Cares and it has helped a ton, especially through Philadelphia. They have a whole separate screening area.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so, you know, managing my expectations helped me let go of a lot. I guess I should have said that when you asked me like how I coped, but I just thought of that.
Yeah, yeah, no, 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 that's fine. Yeah,
Sorry.
it's all really good stuff. It really
During
is.
this
And
conversation, I'm kind of all over the place watching both kids and like
I
talking
you know
about
what?
markers.
That's that's autism parents, right?
Yeah.
We're so, like, our brains become chaotic, and we're so used to
Yes.
communicating with them and their absolute randomness that we start operating on that same level. And, like, we get each other, like, we can have that conversation, we're on the same page. And maybe some people who don't deal with it I doubt they're listening to it, but if they are, they're like, what happened?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit funny. It's almost like having an inside joke with other autism parents.
Yeah.
um but, hey, at this point, is there anything out there you'd like to, promote, or maybe is there a way for people to get in contact with you? You said you like to, help, point people in directions. Is anything you like to plug?
Um, you know, right now I'm actually working on something for the hospital. It's not quite ready yet. I mean, I can talk about it though. Um, I what I want to do is to do like a safety kind of, not, I don't want to say fair, but basically like kind of coming in from the trauma side, like, pediatric safety, like how to do fire safety, street safety, water safety with your child that has special needs, not just autism, but extending out, because you can't kind of do, stop, drop and roll for everybody. Which was, I think, what they were doing for us. I'm 40, so that was what they were doing back in the day. They come to
Yeah.
your classroom and say all that stuff. So it doesn't always go over the same. So I'm kind of working on that to be a resource for families in the community. Um, in the Lehigh Valley, whenever that comes out, I definitely will be all over all the pages about it. I am on Facebook, in all the autism pages for the Lehigh Valley. My name on Facebook is Kenny D. So yeah, you can put that in the caption if anybody wants to reach out, if they need anything. I'm definitely not an expert by any means. I'm just a mom who's trying to do the best they can.
Yeah.
So
I think that's
sharing,
90% of us, right?
yeah, yeah. I don't believe in gatekeeping. So if I find something good, I'm gonna share it.
And hey, if you get some sort of a fair or something put together, let me know. We'll
Yeah.
put up a little brighter spectrum table.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to make sure right now I'm working out the curriculum for everything. And then trying to just, you know, put out the information out there, like trying to help special needs parents as much as possible because the deck is really stacked against you,
Whew.
um, in every way. And like, if anything, being a mom or dad is hard. Like being a parent is hard. I can honestly say being a mom in general is harder than being a trauma surgeon. So, whenever people tell me, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you do that," I'm like, "Well, being a parent is definitely harder." So I can promise you that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so yeah, so we're all doing it. And so I, I I just want to try to help as much as I possibly can. Um, the other thing is if anybody wants to contact me for swim lessons for the person who does the swim, they can also shoot me a message, um, because she's also wonderful. But
We most of us probably need to get those for our kids because
yes,
the
if
drowning
one
is a
thing
very real thing.
Yes, if there's anything that I could impress upon anybody is that water safety, water safety, water safety. Every single time I see something on Facebook about an autistic child is missing, I would say most of the time they're found and they've unfortunately drowned. And then national statistics go with that. So anybody who tells me that their child has recently been diagnosed on the spectrum, I'm like, you need to get them in swim lessons, and the earlier the better. And you need to find someone who does one-on-one and knows how to help a child that's on the spectrum. Because the group
Mhm.
classes sometimes are not for all kids on the spectrum. It can be very difficult. So
Yeah.
it would not have worked for us. But yeah.
Well, all right. Well, hey,
All right.
thank you so much for hanging out with me today. This was a really fun conversation. You know,
Thanks. Thank you for being so patient.
no,
It's,
no, no. I mean, that's something that all of us autism parents have. And like I
yeah,
said, I really like it being on the show because part of this is really showing people like we all go through it,
yeah,
and it's just a very genuine experience. Be like, oh man, they can't even record a podcast. This kid is there. So,
yeah.
and none of us
Constantly.
care. None of us care. We're like, hey
Yeah,
man, and we're just laughing at the kid. We're like, hey, he's partying, he's living his best life, you know.
yeah.
So and it's just what it is. And
Yeah.
I really
He
appreciate.
surprises me sometimes when he was like, "Is Coco dead?" I was like, "No, she's just asleep."
Right, and then you just start dying laughing. But
Yeah.
and that's part of the fun of having them around too. Um, but yes, thank you so much for hanging out. And maybe in the future when you get the safety fair up and running, we'll have you come back and we'll have another conversation.
Perfect. I love it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Brighter Spectrum podcast. If you have any comments, questions, or stories to share, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, feel free to reach out to me at brighterspectrumpodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care and keep shining a light on the journey of parenting.
Thank you for listening.